followed by Cabinet Secretaries and the Public Service Board.
easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how AI makes complex work simple. With ClickUp Brain, I get AI updates on any project, so I don't have to dig through endless details. When I miss a meeting, Brain gives me a quick recap with all the key takeaways. Even long chat threads are condensed into bite-sized insights, so I can catch up in seconds. And if someone sends me a clip, Brain transcribes it and provides me with a detailed summary. ClickUp makes work easy, from personal projects to running a multi-billion-dollar company. Click the link below to create your workspace for free.
No.
No. A veces hay que saber decir que no. Si te dicen que para crecer hay que ajustar a los que menos tienen.
News will invest 2.5 billion shillings to boost agricultural funding for small and medium enterprises in Kenya. The fintech says that this will help boost funding to bridge the over 3.66 trillion shilling gap between agriculture's contribution to the economy and the credit it receives. Despite agriculture contributing 26% to Kenya's annual wealth and providing 1 in every 10 formal jobs, the sector currently receives only 3.53% of private sector credit, amounting to 134.2 billion shillings out of a 3.8 trillion lent to the private sector, according to data from the Central Bank of Kenya. Avenue's country manager Emmanuel Murai says the fintech will leverage technology to enhance access to
Please, 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 stop using ChatGPT like Google. Disappear for a month and do this instead.
So this is how I became the most dangerous person in the room. One habit changed everything. I replaced social media with micro-learning. Now, instead of wasting time on social media, I spend 15 minutes a day actually learning how to use AI for writing, planning, brainstorming, the real work. That's it, just one skill a day. This is the 28-day AI challenge built for beginners over 40. Starts tomorrow. Tap the screen to join us and try the one habit that really makes you unstoppable.
The order, and thereafter we had the cabinet secretaries, at least as we had counted from that. Opio Wandai, Energy, Hassan Ali Joho, Mining, Kipchumba Murkomen, Interior, Salim Vuria, Sports, William Kabogo, ICT, Engineer Eric, who is heads the water docket, Beatrice School, Davis Chirchir, Transport, Adan Duale, Health, Julius Ogamba Migos, Education, and Dr. Deborah Barasa Mlongo, who heads the environment docket. The ODM leadership thereafter had also viewed the body of the former Prime Minister, whose casket was draped in the Kenyan flag, and also as he was presented in the headscarf of the Orange Party and the color that he so adored. The chairperson, national chairperson, and Governor Gladys Wanga led the way, followed by the deputy party leaders, the Senator Godfrey Osotsi, Governor Simba Arati, the Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, Junet Mohamed, Governor Johnson Sakaja, Nairobi County, Rosa Buyu is among one of the elected leaders from Nyanza, Luo Nyanza, and also Millie Odhiambo, who we had seen earlier hanging on to one of the vehicles that was part of the entourage of the vehicles that had escorted the body of the former Prime Minister that was carried by the gun carriage from the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to the Moi International Sports Center in Kasarani. We are waiting when the public will be allowed to start viewing the body of the former Prime Minister, a man who with so much ease has won over their hearts and has of course made evident by the multitude of people who today came out to receive his body at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, and the others who had waited for the body in Parliament. Now you can see them dancing, awaiting when they will be, of course, allowed to view the body of the former Prime Minister. It is a day that equally was dominated by other activities that had happened also in Siaya, his Bondo home, where we had seen his elder brother Oburu Odinga, who had gone there, the co-chair of that committee, that National Funeral Planning Committee, who had led a process which from our team, our sister station, Ramogi TV, had informed us that it's a process in Luo called Tero Nyak Dala, which is a Luo phrase that refers to the traditional ritual of announcing the death within the family of a member.
Big dreams start small. At GoDaddy, we help you take that first step and every step after. From getting your domain to creating your website, email, and online security, we've got you covered. You don't need to be a tech expert. You just need a starting point. GoDaddy gives you the tools, the expert support, and the push to make it real. Your brand starts here with GoDaddy.
Is the orange color, and we haven't gotten the close enough pictures of the coffin, but we had seen the respects that were paid by the president, who had led the family and other government dignitaries, the deputy president, the former president Uhuru Kenyatta, the chief of the defense forces, General Charles Kahariri, and the three service commanders. The cabinet secretaries, we had seen 12 of them who had paid their respects, the ODM party leadership, which had followed course, and outside the public continues to wait. Here are lawmakers Millie Odhiambo and Babu Owino, who represents Embakasi East, and just in close proximity with the people who are waiting for clearance before they are allowed to view the body of the former Prime Minister and pay their respects, as in consultation with a member. They are the Embakasi East lawmaker who is watching what's happening on the pitch as the people await when they will be allowed, and that has been the question that they have been asking. You can see the General Service Unit officers blocking them away from the entrance. That not sure whether it leads to where exactly the body of the former Prime Minister is, and how they will be allowed to also view the body of the Prime Minister, which was jetted back to the country this morning from Mumbai in India, following the long flight to and from Mumbai, which had taken off from the JKIA yesterday, 5 minutes to 7 p.m. local time, and landed some minutes past 3 a.m. before, again flying back home, bearing the casket which had the body of the former Prime Minister. We can see the agitation among ODM supporters here, perhaps signifying something, and they seem seeking some direction on what happens next and when they will be allowed also to view the body of the former Prime Minister. We had also spoken to Jimmy Mbogo, who had given us an update regarding what has happened before they were dispersed and had gunshot sounds rather, and alongside Ben Kirui, who we had also in Kasarani. Once we get hold of them, we'll be able to also seek further information from them. And this is the current state of affairs at the stadium. Quite a busy day also for the logistical team that had moved the viewing to this venue, given the logistical challenges it did present when earlier on the communication was yesterday issued by the Deputy President, Professor Kithure Kindiki, that this process will be happening in Parliament, and thereafter the quick decision that was made when the public who came out to wait for the body of the Prime Minister in Parliament had overpowered the security apparatus. And the intervention of the Speaker, Moses Masika Wetangula, didn't help either. And here's Millie Odhiambo speaking to the public. Yeah. And also by her side is her colleague lawmaker from the ODM party, seems to be giving suggestions that they will be allowed in to also view the body of the former Prime Minister. And quintessential politician, also one of the most consequential women in Kenya's politics, whose debates in Parliament have been characterized by astuteness and steadfastness and preparations, as she has always modeled herself to be. They seem to be the two only lawmakers, and Babu Owino and Millie Odhiambo, who are here to speak to the public. And Millie had suggested some minutes ago that could be the likelihood that they will be allowed, and it's the planning process of how that will be managed, which was the challenging part of what's been happening.
My work is easy because I use ClickUp. Here's how AI saves me hours, organizes my tasks, so I can focus and figure out what to do next. I can ask Brain about any list to quickly get up to speed. When I need to draft documents, ClickUp Brain helps me get ideas on paper, and automatically answered by an AI agent with expert company knowledge. ClickUp makes work easy, from personal projects to running a multi-billion-dollar company. Click the link below to create your workspace for free.
Start with a 50% deposit bonus. Increase your investing power with Pocket Broker. 100 plus investing assets, instant top-up and withdrawal with no fees.
Of the body of the former. For now, I'm joined by my colleague Gatete Njoroge, who is at the stadium. They were there alongside Ben Kirui and Jimmy Mbogo. Gatete, a good evening. Seems to be a long haul. Looks like a long day. Any hints at when the public will be allowed to view the body of the former Prime Minister?
Good evening, Ayub. Indeed, it has been a long day, and we can think it will be a long night, Ayub, inside Kasarani Stadium. And we've been here from around 11 a.m., Ayub. And since that time, we had a crowd surging, where thousands of people had turned out in large numbers to be able to get a chance to view the body of the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Ayub. But until now, Ayub, the public has not been able to view the body of the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga. This is because at around 4 p.m., the crowd that I had gathered here in their thousands tried to approach the VIP section. The VIP section where the President William Ruto, together with the retired President Uhuru Kenyatta and other dignitaries, were there waiting for the body of the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga to arrive at the stadium before the official commencement of the process of viewing the body. But at that particular point, the police officers, the security officers who are there, they had to actually shoot in the air and also lob tear gas to be able to just disperse the surging crowd. From that particular moment, Ayub, and a good number of those who were turned up at Kasarani Stadium, they left the stadium. But we still have a sizable number that is still here. And when the leaders were viewing the body of the late Honorable, the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, what happened is that we saw the crowd. They moved from the terraces and they came to the middle of the pitch where they lined up, and we thought they'll be allowed to view the body. But until now, for the last about 30 minutes, there's no clear communication on whether they'll be allowed inside to be able to view the body. What is happening at the moment, there's a standoff. You can see there are those who have lined up, and if my cameraman can just show you closer to the VIP, you can see there are a number of security officers, majorly the GS2 security officers, who are blocking a good number of the people who are actually going upstairs to try and access the VIP section where the body of the late Right Honorable former Prime Minister is lying in state. At the moment, Ayub, let me say it's a standoff. We are not yet sure. We have seen a number of leaders up there trying to calm the crowd. But at the moment, Ayub, there is no clear communication on whether they'll be allowed to go inside and access the area where the body of the late former Prime Minister is lying in state. But at the moment, Ayub, we are camping here. We are trying to see how the situation will be, and we'll be bringing you up to speed with what will be happening, Ayub.
Gatete, thank you. Much appreciated for the brief assessment that you had given us. Still, we are keeping an eye on the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani, and waiting for, or keeping an eye in that regard, for when the members of the public will be allowed to also view the body of the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga. And on your screens at the moment is the Embakasi MP, East MP Babu Owino, who is seemed to be giving some directions to a member of the security agencies. A while ago, he was in the company of his colleague lawmaker Emilio, as the supporters of the former Prime Minister and members of the public gather, awaiting when they will be allowed to see the man they had cherished for so long. Listening to the public and perhaps what...
Stop using ChatGPT and Canva like children's toys. Here's how to use them right.
So this is how I became the most dangerous person in the room. One habit changed everything. I replaced social media with micro-learning. Now, instead of wasting time on social media, I spend 15 minutes a day actually learning how to use AI for writing, planning, brainstorming, the real work. That's it, just one skill a day. This is the 28-day AI challenge built for beginners over 40. Starts tomorrow. Tap the screen to join us and try the one habit that really makes you unstoppable.
Rest. We'll give you the updates as they develop, and Kasarani will be our focal point of attention and where our cameras are. Yes, Kide. Finally, the reality seems to be setting in.
I usually the floor to my brother Materi.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I know it's quite difficult, a very, very difficult moment for both of us. With the experience that we had with the former Prime Minister. And immediately the coffin was presented in readiness for viewing. Beside it was President Ruto, the former President Uhuru Kenyatta, then Mama Aida was there. And the thought that immediately rang in my mind is, where is Raila? That is the kind of history, that is the kind of life that we are used to. In the history of post-multi-party Kenya, from 1994 onwards, Raila has always been very consistent, very permanent, very present in all our national decisive moments, be it celebrations, be it trying times. Raila has always been there. And therefore, I can feel what my other supporters of Baba are feeling, the emptiness that comes with it, the denial of even accepting that Mzee is departed from our midst is slowly sinking in. And it's very, very difficult, given the history that he has left behind, for his shoes to be filled. I'm so sure with the history that he has given us for over 31 years, because Raila from 1982, he has been active in politics. That would give him almost 40-something years, going into detention from 1982 to 1986, being released for a short time, then going back again in detention from 1989 to 1991. He comes out, he has to flee because there was a rumor that again he was to be arrested and detained again. He goes to Norway, he comes back, joins the father and the young Turks to fight for multi-party democracy. He's again very present in our lives in 1997 when he contests the first time for the presidency against Moi. He comes back again to contest in 2007, 2022, 2017. So he has been a permanent feature in our history, and therefore you can feel the emptiness that comes with that, because this is of someone, the way you aptly captured it, Ayub, who has been a buffer against authoritarianism. And in our interaction, even with the young people there, they were like, who will be there to defend us? When push comes to shove, who will be there to defend us that now Baba is not around? So you can understand the emptiness that comes with that. You can understand the kind of sadness that comes with that. You can understand why it is quite emotional even for us to figure out what is going to happen next. But gallantly, he has left behind sons and daughters who he has mentored, who he has trained, and who he has shown the ropes of leadership, who are able to take up the task to fill his shoes, though it is not going to be easy.
And Kidi, Sir Winston Churchill once said that there are politicians who make the weather. And certainly Raila Odinga was among that list, is it?
That goes without saying, because I think, again, to build up on what Winston Churchill said, William Shakespeare told us that the good men do, and I think that is in his play Julius Caesar, that the good men do are often interred with their bones, but the bad they do usually live on long after they are dead. For Raila's case, I think the reverse will be true, because as we are seated here, as we are viewing the body of the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, I was reflecting at what a visionary man Raila was. You realize that every major milestones we have made as a country in the area of governance had Raila's imprint on it. If you begin with the road network infrastructure, the bulk of that, the thinking that went into that happened during President Kibaki and the first phase of the implementation. And remember, for 8 of the 10 years when President Kibaki was in office, the road ministry was solidly under the belt of Raila Odinga. The first 3 years as minister himself, and when he was prime minister, he appointed both Kipkalia Kones and Franklin Bett to take care of the roads docket, and they did a wonderful job. Today, driving around Nairobi, I can't imagine how driving across Nairobi was before the bypasses that we see around. And when Raila Odinga, then as minister, was conceiving the bypass project, he received a lot of backlash from the political class. And in Raila, we see what it is to believe in something, stick to it, even when the naysayers are telling you to the contrary. Away from the infrastructure, people have given Raila credit about the constitution and the new constitution and the reforms and progress. I certainly do not want to belabor that, but I yield the floor to my brother Matere by saying that Raila is certainly a politician who lived to that adage by Winston Churchill.
That he made the weather.
He did made the weather.
Yeah. And Alex, then for the mentorship that he has provided for young Kenyan, some who had some who experienced that close proximity like you did, and Kidi himself, and the others, especially those who were born post-1997, what are the lessons that they now carry forward in the new Kenya that will be born, minus Raila Odinga, given his influence, his stature, and at times his word that pulled this country from the brink?
Ayub, there is one erudite philosopher who said that best leaders make new leaders. That for you to leave a legacy, then there must be that one who will take up who will take up the mantle from you, who will understand the direction that you are leading, who will understand your ideologies. And by this token, Raila was a good leader. Raila was the best leader that we've ever had, because if you look at the number of mentees that he had, at the screen we are seeing Babu Owino, we see the likes of Caleb Amisi, we see the likes of Senator Sifuna in Nairobi, we see the likes of Mark Nyamita. All these are products of Raila Odinga school of thought. Then those ones who are yet to make it to parliament, because he also gave us a platform to grow our leadership skills. He towers above many other national leaders in respect of how he gave the young people space. He understood that mainstreaming young people, Kenya being largely a youthful country, is quite important in the development and future prospects of this country. And I think the way Sifuna aptly captures it, that if it were not for Raila, then probably he wouldn't be the Secretary General of ODM. If you picture that, him inheriting the position, or rather getting the position from Anyang' Nyong'o, who is basically a contemporary, it's quite phenomenal that Raila had a lot of respect, had a lot of trust, even in the capacity of young leaders, and he provided a platform for them to grow. The second bit, Ayub, is from where I sit, if you'd want to know the character of someone, you look at his contemporaries. If you look at the Right Honorable Raila contemporaries, being Anyang' Nyong'o one of them, they actually attended the African Leadership Forum in Abeokuta in Nigeria together. They are the same people who had even gone to Singapore to meet Lin Kuan Yew. And you see the kind of perspective, the kind of vision that even Anyang' Nyong'o has been able to actualize in Kisumu. These are the contemporaries that Raila kept very close to him. And therefore, going forward, the kind of ideology that Raila has taught us, that one of social democracy, and that's why some of us are quite keen on issues that continue affecting young people, because it's only Raila who told us, again, when we were back as student leaders, that it's important for education to be affordable, that education is the only tool for transformation. If you'd want to run away from poverty, then you need to make education quite accessible to even the least privileged in our society. And therefore, those are some of the ideals that he has inculcated to us. If you look at programs like healthcare, why we are so keen on ensuring that we have a universal cover that even would ensure that even the most underserved in our society can be able to afford and access quality healthcare. These are some of the ideals that Raila has inculcated to us. Top among all those, definitely, Ayub, is the aspect of governance. If it were not for Raila Odinga, the way my colleague Kidi Mwaga has aptly captured, the issue of devolution, I really doubt if Kenya would be enjoying devolution now. Before the onset of devolution in 2010, after the promulgation of the Constitution, there were counties in this country that never had a single kilometer of tarmac road. We never had water, we never had healthcare, but because of some of these things that Raila was so passionate about, he was able to push into the Constitution, and it has been actualized. And therefore, the challenge that remains to us as the people that he mentored is how do we strengthen and deepen devolution to be able to serve the purpose that or rather the vision that he had when he was pushing for aspects of devolution. When you talk about education, how would Raila have envisaged the kind of education that would want to be? When you talk about issues of unemployment, what are the key changes that he would want effected in our constitution, or rather even in our policies, to be able to ensure that we have been able to tackle the issue of unemployment that continues to bedevil this country going forward?
And Kidi, is it a dream deferred for the country that Odinga had so cherished a parliamentary system of governance, pushing for it before we had come up with what we have at the moment? And is this what then the discussion should be revolving around going forward for equity and social justice that he has advocated for and championed at the same time?
I think one credit we do not give Raila enough is how he was gifted with massive intellectual brilliance. Because when Raila was advocating for parliamentary system of governance, I think there was both not only the brilliance into it and all, but also foresight. Because when you come to the question of transfer of power, pure presidentialism has got what you call inherent problems to it. That transfer of power within the presidential system has to take place in the streets. And history has demonstrated that it can be very disruptive. You know, every year we got into elections, Ayub, a year before the elections, capital takes flight to the sidelines. And a year after elections, it takes between 6 months and it takes about 6 months to 1 year after elections for that capital to come back into the center of the economy. In parliamentary system, you realize that if the country has lost faith in the prime minister, then what happened to Liz Truss happens to you. Liz Truss was in office for 45 days, but then when he was unable to earn the trust of... Oh, sorry. It's a moment of great personal and national grief.
Yes, yeah,
so we can
understandable.
We can mix these things. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, and even Boris Johnson before her. The other thing is that a parliamentary system also can promise stability. When Lee Kuan Yew had opportunity to lead Singapore, because of how he was able to earn the trust of the people, the people were able to keep him in office for quite some time.
Until 1990?
Yeah, until 1990, from the 60s. And even Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was in office for, I think, 11 years straight, in part because of how she was able to inspire confidence. And even Tony Blair after her. So I think that Raila, and again, this brings us to the question of transitions in context of programs. When one administration is replaced by another, sometimes there is a push and shove on which programs to give priority, which one to discontinue, which ones to modify. Under parliamentarism, because a leader is, if he is able to inspire the public, he is able to retain the office for long, then it means that, you know, he can be in office for long enough to, you know, implement some of the programs they have. In presidentialism, you know that after 10 years you are done, however good your ideas were. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know if I can add something on that, because this is a conversation that I had also with the Right Honorable. That I remember vividly at some point I actually challenged him that he was pushing for a parliamentary system of governance and not a hybrid system of government the way finally we had. And one of the points that I remember him explaining to me is that there was a research that had been done by political scientists that had indicated that in a heterogeneous society like Kenya, where you have 42 plus ethnic communities, parliamentary systems tend to work more as opposed to a presidential system. And I think Raila, having observed and comprehended the history, the political history of this country, he actually thought that that is the solution that Parliament. That in a parliamentary system, you would have ministers sitting in that parliament. So in terms of accountability, they are there, and you can be the members of parliament who are the representatives of the people can exercise checks and balances and can exercise that aspect of accountability as opposed to presidential systems. We have had, like in parliament, where cabinet ministers do not appear 3-4 times when they are summoned by the relevant committees. And I think Raila, with the kind of precision that he had on governance, he tended more on aspect of parliamentary system, thinking that first, in terms of representation, it really worked for Kenyans being a multi-ethnic community or rather society. Then the aspect of accountability that is very keen in the journey that Raila has traveled all along, the fight of anti-corruption, ensuring that there is integrity, ensuring that the taxpayers' money is used in an efficient manner to transform the lives and livelihoods of Kenyans, is put into account, and those ones who are responsible for taking care of this particular kitty are actually accountable to the people.
Yeah, and Kidi, Margaret Thatcher, who you had quoted, she believed in a major principle, as put in one of the eulogies following her passing on, that she was no starry-eyed internationalist, but again, her approach was rooted in simple and clear principles. Strength abroad begins with strength at home. Deterrence, not appeasement. Firmly believed that the government cannot own major companies. The need for the opening up of the economy, the private sector to flourish and create jobs so that more decent jobs can be created for the people to be taxed. And it's the same principle, is it, that Odinga had constantly believed in, but came up against a wave of opposition that at times, and in most cases, bordered on character assassinating him and his family, to which he has never filed any lawsuit in a court of law. So, I mean, his approach was largely a bird's eye view, is it? And it's going to be a void that will be missed at the party level and an asset at the national level.
And I'm glad you pointed out that about Margaret Thatcher. I come from Kenya African National Union, where, of course, I have the good fortune of serving
the Grand Old Party.
The Grand Old Party under Senator Gideon Moi, where I serve as the Secretary for Policy and Legislative Affairs. I mentioned that because KANU, like the Tory party, is a centre-right political party. And as people in the center-right believe that the size of government should be small, we believe that most of the challenges in the economy can be solved through private enterprise. And so moving away from Margaret Thatcher, let me speak about Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga was a much far-sighted leader. And I just wish that our political leaders who had the opportunity to serve with him were able to cure themselves of some of the short-sightedness that they were suffering from. You know, for instance, let me give an example with the Mau issue. Mau issue was politicized and blown out of proportion unjustifiably, while our collective future was hanging in the balance. People who were politicizing the Mau issue were unfortunately very well-schooled people and knew better. They took advantage of the ignorance of the masses and, decided to hang, Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Some of the policy interventions, and Raila Odinga was not a man given to populism and theatrics. Because, for instance, Raila Odinga helped so many people, but never spoke about it. But that was by design, because he believed that the greatest help a leader can do is to intervene in people's lives through policy, so that government has got a direct input in how the environment that people live in, that people do business in, that people go to school in, is able to, help them tackle some of these challenges. That is the far-sighted leader we have lost, my brother Ayub.
And because he had championed for the devolved system of governance, and up until before his death, had advocated for more resource allocation to the devolved units, and which in hindsight we'll be talking about, because that would otherwise diffuse the tension and takes attention away from the national politics. And this is a message of condolence from Kevin Osido, who is the executive director at the County Governance Watch, and he says Right Honorable Raila Odinga was more than a politician. He was a teacher of courage, a symbol of endurance, and a living testimony that conviction can outlast circumstance. He taught us that democracy is not a gift but a duty, that peace is not weakness but wisdom, that leadership is not about power but purpose.
True.
Many called him Baba, and rightly so, for he fathered the movement, nurtured a generation, and gave his life to the dream of a better Kenya. Even when victory seemed distant, he never gave up. Even when the path was lonely, he kept walking. His story reminds us that real greatness is not measured by titles held, but by lives touched and the truths that were defended. Raila Odinga will be remembered as the man who dared, the patriot who endured, and the father of democracy and devolution in our land. Rest well, Mzee. Your voice may fall silent, but your vision will keep speaking through the generation you inspired. That's Kevin Osido, the executive director at the County Governance Watch. And given that, Alex, we have to live with this problem, that is the consequences that accompany presidential elections that are costly and beyond that consequential, given the uncertainty that engulfs the country in the aftermath of every electoral cycle. How will the devolution of more resources to the devolved units diffuse the tension, take the tension away from the focus on the national or at the center? Ideally, what was supposed to have been the case as envisioned by Katiba, to devolve power and resources to the counties so that all this is in close proximity of the people. Is that the pathway now we have to take?
Ayub, to most Kenyans, when a political leader from your community or ethnic belonging wins an election, it's as if they have won a lottery. You'd hear members of his or her community saying that now it's our turn to eat, it's our turn to enjoy, it's our turn to have a bigger cake than community X, community Z. And this premium that we have continued to place at the presidential level, at the national level, continues to destroy this country, continues to raise emotions, and that's why we are 2 years away from an election. But if you're a visitor, you'd think that probably in the next month, Kenya is going to go for general elections. And I think in the foresight that Baba had, that's why he came up with devolution. And if you look at the Azimio manifesto, it was quite explicit on the recommendations that we had for devolution, that we were going to raise it from 15% to actually 30%, ensure that shared revenue, not more than 70% is going to remain in Nairobi. Can we take more than 30% to mashinani? This will somehow pacify the feeling that I need to have a president who comes from my community, and that is the surest way to know that my welfare, my aspirations, and my challenges are tackled. If we have more resources back there in mashinani, if we have more resources back there in the counties, then we would have them implement even the functions that have been been devolved in our constitution in Schedule 4, I believe, Kidi, to ensure that they are proximate, we have quality, and we have accessible services at the local level. If the normal man knows that Governor X, if my governor is Governor X and he has this kind of resources, then he can be able to tackle most of the problems that I have in mashinani, as opposed to for them looking at who is the president of this country. I believe, from where I see, that this is part of the vision that Raila had, and until even he signed off, he continued advocating for devolution, saying that we need to have more resources in devolution, that even the national government does not, should not actually continue ignoring or assuming that certain functions are a privilege of the national government. But if the Constitution says in Schedule 4 that a function like health should be devolved, then health fully should be devolved. We leave only the national government with the policy aspect. And I think this is some of the challenges that up to now we have not been able to solve, because for instance, the budget of the Ministry of Health alone is more than the shared revenue that goes to counties, to the 47 counties, which basically beats the logic why in our constitution we say that health is devolved, while a big chunk of our budget still remains at the national government. I don't think this is part of the vision that the drafters of the constitution, including Raila Odinga, had when they were drafting the aspects of devolution. If you look at roads, and Raila has been quite vocal on that, on the functions of Kura, of the functions of Kera, on the functions of Kenha. He has been indicating that rather than giving this money again to members of parliament, this money should actually should not remain at the national government, but should go to county governments, because we know the way I had indicated earlier, that some counties, I think it was Mandera, it never had a single kilometer of tarmac road. The only tarmac road that they knew the first time post 2010 actually came as a result of devolution. So you can see the kind of hindsight and the kind of insight he also had when he was pushing for such aspects as devolution. And he knew very well that if we have resources, if county governments have enough resources, then they can be able to provide quality services that are proximate and accessible to majority of Kenyans. Remember that at the national level in Nairobi, Nairobi is basically a population of about 4 to 5 million.
Yes.
In a country of about 56 million. So you have about 51 million of Kenyans out of Nairobi. And basically, if you extrapolate it further to urban centers, you'd realize that majority of our population are actually in rural areas. So for us to ensure that we have taken advantage of even the enormous potential that Kenya has, devolution has to work. And I think that is a challenge that Mzee Raila Odinga left for us, that we as his mentees have to fight for devolution, have to ensure that there are more resources, but also ensure that once these resources go to county governments, the aspect of accountability is key.
Yeah, and he was keenly very fastidious in preparation for debates at the National Assembly, and espoused that throughout his political career. How will then the membership of the county assemblies learn from this in strengthening accountability at the county's level and to the National Assembly? What then will this portend for the much-needed oversight, which is apparently lacking on the part of it? Is there something that they can learn from the former Prime Minister?
A lot. We were the kids who were coming of age during the life of the 10th Parliament. Yeah. And one thing about the 10th Parliament is that Speaker Marende attempted to increase transparency by having the media in the House. And so some of us at a young age followed some of those debates. And on Wednesday, there was the Prime Minister's question time. And the Prime Minister would respond to an array of issues across government. One thing first we learned from Raila then as young kids was the value of intellectual curiosity. Mm-hmm. He made us want to read more, he made us want to learn more, he made us want to have our facts on our fingertips. And as Raila Odinga goes, I would say at personal level, Raila Odinga inspired me to consume the thinking of other people through writing. Especially by the time when he visited what was the name of the former Mungiki leader, Maina Njenda.
Yes.
And took to him the 48 Laws of Power and the other book by Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. I mean, that is what an intellectual powerhouse Raila was. So that reflected in his debates in Parliament. Mm-hmm. And you realize that even when towards the run-up to 2013, when the members of the Grand Coalition or hitherto members of the Grand Coalition attempted to challenge him by being politically mischievous in the House on what could be the date on which the 2013 general elections would be held. If you find that clip, you see Raila, the intellectual powerhouse, in how he manages to give both politically correct answers without betraying what he believes in. So I think one thing our members of the County Assembly and the National Assembly will learn from this